بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علمك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Sorry, could you check? There was a noise. We started discussing arguments for the existence of God, and first we said we have to clarify few concepts. The concept of wajibul wujud, mumkinul wujud, mumtani'ul wujud. We said any concept compared to existence can be one of the three. Either wujud or existence is necessary for it, or it is impossible for it, or it is contingent, neither necessary nor impossible. This is as a concept in mind. But when we go to the external world, and we look at the things which actually exist, then there are only two possibilities. Because if they were impossible to exist, they could have not existed. So those things which are existing, either they are contingent, mumkinul wujud, or wajibul wujud. If you accept that there is wajibul wujud, no problem. If you say they are all mumkinul wujud, then we said mumkinul wujud has equal relation with existence and non-existence. Both are possible. Each of us, all the objects that we see in this room, they are mumkin, they are contingent. They can exist, they can also not exist. There is nothing in them that makes it necessary to exist or not to exist. Equal. So if they exist, it's for reason, and if they don't exist, it's also for reason. Many times I repeated this, that even non-existence needs reason, because it's equal. If by itself it had to not be there, it means that it was mumtan or wujud. So to exist, they need some external factor to bring them into existence. Not to exist, also they need an external factor. Of course, we said that external factor is non-existence of the cause. Yes? Adamul illah illatun lil adam. Non-existence of the cause is the cause for non-existence. Okay? Non-existence of the cause is the cause for non-existence. So, we discussed these things. Now, we want to continue with the commentary of Fazil Mirdad, rahmatullah alayhi, and again we repeat these things with more details. We reached page 19, just the middle of page, Al-Fa'idatu Thaniya, middle of page. Okay? Why it is called Fa'ida? We said Fa'ida means benefit. When there is a beneficial point, sometimes they call it Fa'ida. In the, Islamic text, classic text, sometimes they use different names. One name that they use for points that they make is fa'ida. So, al-fa'idatu thaniya. What was the first?
The 5 characteristics of
Yes.
wajibul wujud.
Yes. The first fa'ida, the first point was about 5 characteristics of necessary being. We said wajibul wujud has 5 characteristics. Now we are talking about characteristics of mumkin. What do we mean by mumkin? Contingent. there are three characteristics. First, al-ula. Why it doesn't say al-awwal? Why it says al-ula?
First point, نقطة أو
الفائدة. It's الفائدة.
No, it's not al-faida.
النقطة الأولى أو
No.
النقطة الأولى.
It's the most important.
Because of feminine.
Yeah, why it's feminine?
خاصية.
Khawas is the plural for khassa. Khassa, characteristic, and then khawas. So al-ula means al-khassatul ula. Okay? You have to always ask yourself why. Why it is muzakkar, why it is muannas, why it's plural. You know, always ask why mansub, why majroor, why marfu. If you ask these questions, then you will learn, and then also you don't argue with other people because you have enough to argue with the text. Okay. أنه لا يكون أحد الطرفين أعني الوجود والعدم أولى به من الآخر. Very beautiful point. You have the same point in philosophy also, in بداية الحكمة and نهاية الحكمة. علامة طباطبائي makes this point. ممكن الوجود, we said, has equal relation to both sides. Okay? So, لا يكون أحد الطرفين. None of the two parties, two sides. What are two sides?
Existence, non-existence.
Existence and non-existence, yeah? Wujud and Adam. None of the two is أولى به من الآخر. Is closer to it than the other, is preferable than the other, it deserves more than the other. You know awla, yeah? Awlawiyya means none of them is prior to the other, none of them
More important.
is more important, is preferable to the other. It's equal, the relation. You cannot even say 51% it inclines towards existence. 49 to they are the same.
50-50.
Pardon?
Is it like probability, or what exact language would you use for that?
It doesn't imply or it doesn't deserve anyone more than the other. Has equal relation. None of them is more important than the other. None of them precedes the other. You can use different terms. Pardon? Yeah, it's equal.
Equal in status.
Pardon?
Equal in status.
Yeah. أولى بل هما متساويان. Rather, the truth is this. They are homa. Homa refers to two, which means wujud and adam, existence and non-existence. Okay? Homa, wujud and adam, ma'an, together, mutasawiyan, they are equal. بالنسبة إليه, with respect to mumkin, wujud and adam are equal. It's very easy, yeah? It's very easy. بل هما معان متساويان بالنسبة إليه. Both wujud and adam are equal. ككفتي الميزان, like two
Side of a scale.
side of a scale. They call it what, blade, or what they call for a scale. Has two,
The scale.
yeah, two scales. So they are equal. فإن ترجح أحدهما, if one of them is overweighing the other, one of them overcomes the other, one of them is raised over the other. Tarajjaha, rujhan means to prefer. Okay? So if one of them overcomes the other or overweighs the other, is because of an external cause. فإنما إنما يكون بسبب الخارجي عن ذاته. It's because of a cause which is external, it's outside it. In essence is equal. So if wujud is given preference, it must be for an external reason. If Adam is given preference, again it's for external. Why? Because in its essence is equal. It's logical. لأنه لو كان أحدهما أولى به من الآخر. Because if Awlawiyya was there, we said there is no Awlawiyya, none of them has preference. If the other possibility was correct, so if Awlawiyya was there, we said Awlawiyya is not there, but like Burhan Khulf, if Awlawiyya was there, this part is a little bit difficult. First understand, then we go to the text. If there was Awlawiyya, means one of them was overweighing the other.
Intrinsically. Inherently.
Yes. Now, the question is, was this extra significance enough to make that side decisive or not? For example, you say 60% it inclines towards existence, 40% to non-existence. Okay? We say this doesn't make sense. Why? Because if with this 60% is going to be there, it's going to come to existence, so then what about those 40%? Where did they go? Yes? Because when you say there is 40% chance of not being existent, so this means that if it exists, still we have a question mark why it came to existence. Okay? And if you say that it doesn't come to existence, because there is a chance, so this is useless. So then what is the difference between being 50% or 60%? Do you understand? So this is something that is not rational, not reasonable to say that it can have a slight or a strong preference, but not 100%. We say, if there is a preference, is that preference going to make it decisively the case or not? If it say decisively it will be the case, we say, so what about the other probability? What happened to that? Why that is not considered? And if you say, no, it's not going to happen, you say, then what is the benefit? What is the difference between 50% or 60%? It's useless. In any case, it's not very difficult issue, if you really conceive the subject. The idea is this: when something in itself doesn't have any principle for existence, it's not like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His essence requires existence. Okay? Even you should not think that Allah creates Himself. This is wrong. Allah doesn't create Himself. Allah exists by Himself, not that He creates Himself. Because to say He creates Himself is a vicious circle. So, something like wajibul wujud in its essence has a principle that explains why it's there. But mumkinul wujud, contingent, in its essence, neither implies existence nor non-existence. So, whether it exists or not, there must be something else that necessitated existence or non-existence. Now let's go back to the text. فَإِن تَرَجَّحَ أَحَدُهُمَا, if one of the two sides is stronger, it is because of an external cause. Al-khariji an dhate means something which is external, outside itself, means external. Al-khariji an dhate means something outside itself. Why? لأنه لو كان أحدهما أولى به من الآخر. Because if one of the two sides was closer to it, had preference, فإما أن يمكن وقوع الآخر أو لا. Either still the other side which didn't have preference, the 40%, either the other side which doesn't have preference still is possible to happen or it's not possible to happen. فإن كان الأول, if the other side 40% still can happen, so what is the benefit of this أولوية? This أولوية was not sufficient. لم يكن الأولوية كافية. It was not sufficient. It was not adequate. It was not useful. وإن كان الثاني, if the other side, that 40%, is not possible, كان المفروض أولى به واجبا له. You know, if you listen to the way I read, then you can understand the meaning. كان المفروض أولى به واجبا له. What you suppose that was awla now has become necessary. If that 40% is not possible, so you must say this is not 60%, you must say this is 100%. So if that 40% is possible, so what is the benefit of being 60%? It's like 50%. If 40% is not possible, so why you said this is mumkin? You have to say this is necessary. It's 100%. Okay?
Can I ask, Sheikh?
But that's what mafrudan means.
Mafruz means what you suppose.
What you suppose.
Yeah. Can you wait till end or?
Okay, because it's actually touching what you are saying.
Okay, touch it.
Because you know sometimes you might say something might happen with a chance of 1%, but when it happens, then it have happened or it has happened.
Never anything which is 1% by chance happens. It means that there must be something that you didn't know that made it 100%. Ma lam yajib lam yujad. Unless something becomes necessary, it never happens. Because, you know, imagine if there is still a possibility of not exist. There's a question mark. So you cannot explain what it has happened. You can only explain something if you can say why among all different probabilities this happened. If you still say there was 51% or 60 or 90% chance, but I don't know why it happened, this is not a complete explanation. Complete explanation must leave no room for any other possibility. So in philosophy, we have this rule: "Ash-shay'u ma lam yajib lam yujad." Therefore, we don't have any chance. Chance, philosophically, is rejected. We don't have any chance. Because of lack of knowledge, we think something happens by chance. Okay? But in reality, there is no chance. Everything has its necessary explanation. Okay. وَإِنْ كَانَ الثَّانِي كان المفروض أولى به واجبا. So واجبا is khabar for kana. What we suppose to be awla for mumkin became necessary for mumkin. فيصير الممكن إما واجبا أو ممتنعا. If what you thought has awlawiyya was the side of existence, so it is wajib. If you thought awlawiyya is for non-existence, so it is mumtana. So there is no imkan.
Can you explain that again, please?
Yes. If the side which we said it's more probable, stronger, if it becomes necessarily the case, so it means that this was not indeed contingent. Because if existence was awla and then it had to happen, so it is wajibul wujud. If non-existence was awla and you said it had to happen, so it was mumtana'ul wujud. It was not mumkinul wujud, because if it is mumkinul wujud, still the chance of this side happening or that side happening has to be there. Even if it is a smaller chance, it is there. You cannot explain by referring to this why it existed or non-existed. You always need a necessary factor come from outside. Otherwise, this cannot explain its existence or non-existence. Mumkinul wujud is always in need of something else to explain it.
Of course.
And this is why all the mumkinat are signs for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah? Because they say we cannot explain ourselves. Yes? Mumkinat, they say we cannot explain ourselves. You must look for an explanation for us. Don't be deceived by our, appearance. We are there, but we cannot explain why we are here. You have to look for something beyond us. So these are signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? Like you see a book, you see a, carpet, you see a painting. These are signs of a writer, an artist. Because this book says, I cannot explain why I am here. Okay? One of the problems that we have in the world today is we are very much preoccupied with understanding how and not why. How rain comes, how we become ill, how we grow, but we don't ask why. If you ask why, it leads to God. If you ask how, you remain just within the realm of science. We need both. How and why. Okay? الثانية. Second what? Exactly. Second khasa, characteristic. Pardon? We finished. فيصير الممكن واجبا أو ممتنعا وهو محال. ممكن became something else. ممكن became necessary or ممكن became impossible.
Is it okay to ask?
Is little
Is
or
it wajib?
Okay, I will.
yeah, okay.
Wajib bidatihi.
الثانية, second characteristic. أن الممكن, very beautiful point. You discussed this point in Aqaid a lot. الممكن محتاج إلى المؤثر. Something, I was just telling you. مؤثر. مؤثر means something which has impact, something which has influence, something which brings into existence. مؤثر. You have athar and you have مؤثر. Athar is impact, effect. Mu'athir is the one that causes that asar. Okay? So, mumkinul wujud always needs mu'athir, needs a cause that brings it into existence. Originator. Why? لأنه لما استوى الطرفان, because when both sides are equal, what do we mean by both sides? أعني, i.e. أعني means i.e. الوجود والعدم, both sides, existence and non-existence, they are equal بالنسبة إلى ذاته, with respect to its essence. Okay? So, ممكن الوجود is something that both existence and non-existence are equal to its essence. So, استحال ترجيح أحدهما على الآخر إلا لمرجح. It's impossible one of the two sides is dominating the other, is overcoming the other without anything that can give this preference. Murajjih, something that gives preference. Okay? So, mumkinul wujud needs for existence or non-existence to have a murajjih, something that gives preference to one side.
Sheikh, could you just...
وَالْعِلْمُ بِهِ بَدِيهِيٌّ, and this is self-evident. Yes.
Can you translate that line, please? The one you just...
Sure. From where?
From istihala.
It's impossible that one of them overweighs the other. Unless, except Allah, limurajjih, because of a factor that gives preference. When two things are equal, how can one of them overweigh the other if they are equal? How can one of them? You need something from outside to interfere. Yeah, because they are equal, so there must be something from outside that gives preference. Okay. The third point. You know, in Aqaid we have this discussion that the relation between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the world is not a builder and building. Remember this? What is the difference?
All the time.
Uh-huh. A builder can make a house and then after he dies or goes away, still the building is there. Yes? Forget those builders that even when they are there, the building collapses. But if it's a good builder, the house can remain after the builder dies. Okay? What about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Does the world need Allah only in the beginning? Just to bring it to the existence and then without Allah they can continue like a building without builder? No. We said no. Why? Builder is not really illah. In philosophical terms, we say this is illat i'dadi. It just prepares. It's not illat mufize. It's not the originating cause. Existence does not come from builder. Builder is not granting existence. Builder is just helping. It's a catalyst. Like parents. Parents are not giving existence to the child. Parents are like catalysts. Okay? Means they have a role in preparation of the ground for Allah to give the existence. But existence comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not from the parents, not from the builder. Okay? So, those things which are acting as illat i'dadi or as like preparatory cause or catalyst, they finish their job and go away. But originating cause has to be always there. Why? Now you can understand it very well. Why? Because we have a contingent being. or million of contingent beings, doesn't make difference. They are contingent beings. Whether they exist or not exist, they need something to give them existence. This contingency is not separable from them. You shouldn't think that they are contingent. When they are brought into existence, then they are no longer contingent. They are always contingent. In other words, when we look at their essence, their zat, the relation with wujud and adam is always the same. So they always need something from outside their essence to explain why they exist or why they don't exist. This is why in aqaid and also in philosophy, in Bidayah, Nihaya, in all these books we have this discussion. What is the reason for needing cause? ما هي علة حاجة الممكن؟ ما هي علة حاجة الممكن? Now I am preparing you for philosophy also. Okay? So some of these things, inshallah, you are studying philosophy. What is the reason for needing cause? Some people had this idea that the reason for being in need of a cause is huduth. Huduth. What is huduth?
It's coming into existence.
To be created. Means you didn't exist, you have come to existence. This is huduth. So they thought because of huduth, we need illah. Then there were two problems. One is that, so if something is eternal, is qadim, it doesn't need cause. Like mujarradat, abstract beings, angels, they always existed. So they don't need creator, they need creator. This is one problem. The second problem, if something which didn't exist and came to existence needs illah because of this experience, so it means that after they exist, they no longer need Allah. When they didn't exist, they needed Allah to come to existence, but now they don't need. So huduth is not very accurate. What is the illah for haja, illah to hajat al-mumkin lil-illah? What is the cause of the need of contingent for cause? Is imkan, is contingency. And this contingency is always there. At the beginning, in the middle, at the end, before existing, not existing, in all circumstances, imkan is not separable from something which is ma'lul. It is essential characteristic. We can never run away from being mumkin. Okay? So why we need Allah? Because we are mumkin. So whether we exist or don't exist, whether we are there just for 1 hour or 1 million years, it doesn't make difference. We are in need of something from outside that gives us existence. Okay? الثالثة, the third characteristic of mumkin, contingent. أن الممكن الباقي محتاج إلى المؤثر. Mumkin, the contingent, which is baqi. What is baqi? Endures, yeah? It means that it is something that has not just come to existence. Something which has remained, has endured. محتاج إلى المؤثر. It still, you can add a still also there. It still needs mu'athir. Mu'athir means the originator, the cause. Why? إنما قلنا ذلك. The reason we said this is this. لأن الإمكان لازم لماهية الممكن. Because contingency is necessary requirement, lazim, it's a necessary implication or requirement of whatness of mumkin, nature of mumkin, mahiyya. Mahiyya, inshallah, we'll explain it in philosophy more, but you can say whatness or quiddity or nature. Just say nature for the time being. For the nature, for the essence of mumkin, it's not separable. Like, for example, for 2 or 4 or 6 being even is lazim or غير lazim? It's lazim. You cannot have 2 or 4 or 6 which is not even. Okay? For a human being to be old or young is not lazim. To be healthy or ill is not lazim, but for a human being to be mumkin, it's lazim. You cannot find a human being which is not mumkin. So, imkan is essential property, characteristic of us. We can never, run away from imkan. Ya ayyuhan nas antumul fuqara'u ila Allah. This poverty is something is there. Even you are billionaire, you are faqir, you are poor, you are needy. Okay?
Imkan means to be needy.
Pardon?
Imkan means to be needy.
Yes. This is essential poverty. We are absolutely poor. وَيَسْتَحِيلُ رَفْعُهُ عَنْهُ. It's impossible to remove this from mumkin. Why it says raf'a, not daf'a?
Take it out.
In the first session we said daf'a means not to let something come. Daf'a, defending. Raf'a, we said something is there and you want to take it away. You want to remove it. Did you remember the point?
No.
Okay, so you are making progress. Okay. وَإِلَّا. Otherwise, if this contingency was going to be removed, it means that something has changed in its essence. لَزِمَ إِنْقِلَابُهُ مِنَ الْإِمْكَانِ إِلَى الْوُجُوبِ أَوِ الْإِمْتِنَاعِ. If we were able to remove contingency, it means that this mahiyya has been transformed from imkan to wujub or imtina. Inqilabul mahiyya muhal, you cannot change something in its essence because then it's not the same thing. Something which is mumkin has to be mumkin. You cannot make mumkin wajib. You cannot make wajib mumkin. In philosophy they say inqilabul mahiyyati mustahil. Inqilab doesn't mean revolution. Inqilab means transformation. Transformation of essence is impossible. Okay? وَقَدْ ثَبَتَ. It has been established, it has been demonstrated that أَنَّ الْإِحْتِيَاجِ لَازِمٌ لِلْإِمْكَانِ. Need is a necessary implication or requirement of a contingency. Poverty, need, haja, faqr. Okay, need is necessary for mumkin. And imkan is also necessary for the mahiyya of mumkin. You cannot separate imkan from us and you cannot separate haja from our imkan. So we are mumkin and poor. We are mumkin and dependent. Okay? We are mumkin and dependent. So, to be arrogant, philosophically, it doesn't make sense. Yeah?
Exactly. Yeah.
You remember when we were talking about humbleness,
Love,
we
what-
said, it doesn't make sense, to be arrogant. وَلَازِمُ اللَّازِمِ لَازِمٌ وَلَازِمُ اللَّازِمِ لَازِمٌ. The implication of another implication is implication. What does it mean? It means that when my essence or your essence implies imkan, and imkan implies
Another.
need, so it means that my essence implies need. Of course, with one thing in the between. Yeah, lazimul lazime, lazimun. So, if A requires B and B requires C, so it means A requires C. Whenever there is A, C must be there because A cannot come without B. B cannot come without C. So A requires C. Is it clear?
So what's the translation of that implication?
You can say the implication of what is implied is an implication of the what is implying. The implication of what is implied is the implication of what is implying.
Can we say that?
Or the requirement of the requirement is a requirement.
Can we say that a grandchild need a granddad? That's the illah for grandchild.
That's an example. But if you want to say general way, so requirement of requirement is a requirement. Yes? فيكون الاحتياج لازما لماهية الممكن. So need is requirement of the essence of ممكن. وهو المطلوب. And this was what we were looking for. This was what we wanted to establish. Okay. Now, alhamdulillah, the commentary of Fazil al-Mighdad for
There's two sentences.
the text that we had from Allama Hilli finished. We had 2 lines. So for 2 lines, then we had about more than 2 pages. Now we go back to the text of Allama Hilli. We can have a quick question.
Can you just translate the last line again?
Just the last line.
From
فيكون الاحتياج لازما لماهية الممكن. Need. احتياج means need. Becomes a requirement of nature of contingent being. Because imkan was requirement of the nature. Mahiyya. And ihtiyaj is a requirement of imkan. So then ihtiyaj becomes requirement of the requirement of mahiyya. So need cannot be separated from us. We always need our cause. Whether it's at the beginning or in the middle or even before coming to existence, we need. Yes.
As the necessary being is a creator that needs to create, so that's part of his essence, is creation. So within his existence, there is always a possibility of existence of other things. So does that mean that they are necessarily part of him?
Part? What do you mean by
Not
part?
part, I mean, what I'm saying is, because he creates,
Okay.
that's the essence of Allah is creation. So
No, essence is not creation.
well, for things, contingent beings that are neither existent or existent,
Okay.
they're mumkin, were they always there?
The contingent, no. The contingent beings.
Before they became existent,
Okay.
that's what I'm saying.
So before they became existent, they were not existent.
But then he then must have brought them into
Yes,
existence.
so this
There
is
was a
creation.
time-
So this is
so then
creation.
there was a
Creation
time-
means to give existence.
So does that mean there was a time when they weren't existing?
Ah, there was a time is not always good and accurate expression.
Yeah, I'm aware of
For
that.
yes, for us
yes.
it's okay. We say there was a time that we didn't exist and we came to existence. But for example, for the whole world, you cannot say there was a time that the world didn't exist, because before this world existed there was no time.
But the moment,
Okay?
rather than time, basically a moment when there was not existence.
What do you mean by moment?
Before Allah should be.
Point.
Okay, so
What I'm trying to say is that anything that's mumkin needs to have become mumkin.
you know, philosophers say something very nice. They say, "Kan Allah, wa lam yakun ma'ahu shay." Allah was there and there was nothing with him. Okay? In Farsi, when we want to say a story for children, we say yeki bud, yeki nabud. Okay? So it means that there was one and nothing else. So we say Kan Allah wa lam yakun ma'ahu shay. There was Allah and nothing with him. Okay? But then we say Wal'an kama kan. Still this is the case. Still Allah is there and nothing is there with him. So when we say everything is created by God, we shouldn't think that there was a time that Allah was alone, then he created us.
That's what I'm saying.
He was never alone.
That's what I'm saying.
Or if you want to say he was alone, he's still alone. If you mean by being alone in the level of existence that he has, he's still alone. If you mean by being alone, having no creation, this didn't exist as a time. There was no time that he was alone. Because even time is a creation. So if you say there was a time that nothing existed, at least that time was there. Okay? So, sometimes the language has limitations.
The language has a barrier.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Language has limitations.
Yeah.
And you have to stretch language so that you can speak about God. It's very difficult. And therefore you have to be always careful. That first of all, not to stretch language too much, because then that will become nonsense. You know, some people speak about philosophy or theology, become nonsense, like a person who has fever. So if you stretch language too much, it becomes nonsense. But also, you must be careful that whatever you are able to convey with that language is not perfect. Allah is greater than that. Allahu akbaru min an yusaf. He is greater than any description. But gradually your description becomes better and better. When you study Babu Hadi Ash, compared to the time you finish, your description, inshallah, changes.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Yes.
You know, in the page before you.
Can we continue for 15 minutes, then we stop and then we can have questions, okay? Because now we are in the middle of discussion, so if you don't mind, keep your questions. Okay, we go back to the text of Allama Hilli, rahmatullah alayh. La shakka. You remember, Allama Hilli said there are three possibilities. Kullu ma'qulan, every concept has one of the three possibilities. Okay? You remember? Wajib al-wujud al-zate, mumkin al-wujud al-zate, or mumtan al-wujud al-zate. Then he says, wala shakka. You know how interesting it is. several centuries ago, Allama Hilli was sitting and writing this. Maybe he was in front of a cup of tea also, we don't know. He was, lying back on a pillow and was writing wala shakka. Now, alhamdulillah, it's a blessing of life of ulama. لا شك في أن هنا موجودا بالضرورة. It has remained. What he has done has remained. We do many things and after some time is forgotten. But these people had blessed life. لا شك في أن هنا موجودا بالضرورة.
What does he mean by huna?
Pardon?
What does he mean by huna?
There is no doubt that there is existent, there is being, there is reality, بالضرورة, necessarily. So no one can doubt that we have a reality. So we said there are three possibilities just for the sake of imagination. Okay? معقول. We said everything that you imagine, every concept, is either wajib or mumkin or mumtana. But can we say there is mumtana outside? إن هناك ممتنعا. There is no mumtana outside. Mumtana cannot exist. Okay? So, there is something there, necessarily. Bez zarura means there is no doubt. Here, bez zarura means what? Here, bez zarura doesn't mean wajibul wujud. Means without doubt, without any question. Okay, so something is there. فَإِنْ كَانَ وَاجِبًا لِذَاتِهِ. If this is something which is necessary by itself, فَهُوَ الْمَطْلُوبُ. Alhamdulillah, so you accepted the existence of God. If you accepted that in the real world we have wajibul wujud لذاته, so فَهُوَ الْمَطْلُوبُ, because we wanted to prove the existence of God. What is God? Wajibul wujud. Yes? وَإِنْ كَانَ مُمْكِنًا. But if you say no, there is no wajibul wujud. Everything is mumkin. Everything is contingent. We say, okay, how this mumkin came to existence? It needs something from outside to give it existence. إِنْ كَانَ مُمْكِنًا افتقر إلى موجد يوجده بالضرورة. If it is mumkin, okay, this mumkin needs, افتقر, needs, موجد, originator, that gives existence to it necessarily. Because mumkin cannot be creating itself. It needs something. So, this contingent needs originator. Now we ask you about that originator. If you say that originator is wajib, alhamdulillah. If you say that originator is mumkin, so we say subhanallah. If you say wajib, say alhamdulillah. If you say mumkin, say subhanallah. This mumkin then needs another illah. Okay? So, you have to accept one of the three. Either you say, we have to finally reach something which is wajib. Okay? So, alhamdulillah. Finally. So, A is created by B, B by C. Anyway, after 10 or 20 or 100, you say, then finally, illatul illal is God. That's fine. If you say A is created by B, but then B is created by A, in order to avoid admitting existence of wajib, you say A needs B and B needs A, or A needs B, B needs C and C needs A. Whether you make the circle small or bigger, but this is vicious circle. Because if A needs B, and B needs C, and C needs A, so it means A needs A. It means that A must be there so that it can exist. Because it's giving existence to itself. It doesn't make sense. How something which is not there can give existence to itself. And by bringing B in between, or B and C in between, you are not, solving the problem. Don't say, if I say A is creating A is a problem. But I say A is creating B and B is creating A, so there is no problem. This is a bigger problem. Don't deceive us. Yeah? Because you are not solving the problem, you are just making the problem bigger. So, there are three possibilities. Either you accept that sooner or later we have to reach wajib al-wujud. So this is okay. If you say, no, there is a circle, this is not possible. And if you say, this is endless series of cause and effects, A by B, B by C, C by D, D by E, and goes on and on and on, and never reaches wajib, we say, this is not also possible. Why? There are different arguments to prove impossibility of tasalsul. This is called tasalsul. Going endlessly.
Continuity.
Yeah. Yes.
Regression.
This is impossible. Why? There are different arguments, but one argument which is in the book, which is a very good argument, is this. Forget the number. Whether we have 1 mumkin, or 10 mumkin, or 1 million mumkin, or infinite mumkin. Are they mumkin or not? Yes, so they need. If you have 1 hungry person to feed, or 1 million hungry people to feed, you need bread. You cannot say, I increase the number. I say A gives to B, B gives to... Anyway, you have to have something to give them. So if you increase the number, you are increasing the need. Okay? Don't think that, by saying 1, B, C, like this, then we will forget, say, okay, we are tired, so we don't accept. No, this is not going to make us tired. Even if you want to say 1 million times, there are something between us and Allah. Finally, there must be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There must be wajib al-wujud. Because the increasing number of needy beings, contingent beings, is not going to make them wajib. Okay? Is it clear? So, this is argument for existence of God. Okay, now let's go back again to the text. إن كان ممكنا افتقر إلى موجد يوجده بالضرورة. If it is mumkin, because we said if it is wajib, alhamdulillah, it's wajib al-wujud, finished. If it is mumkin, it needs originator that originates it necessarily. That originator, if it is wajib, فالمطلوب. So alhamdulillah. إن كان ممكنا, if that also is mumkin, contingent, it needs another originator. So A is created by B, and you say B is also mumkin. Okay, so B is created by C. Is this second originator, this first thing A, so it's circle. إن كان الأول, so if this second originator is A itself, so A is created by B, and B is created by another mumkin, which is A, which is a circle. It's door. You know door? Circle. Door means circle. وهو باطل بالضرورة. This is self-evidently batil, false. We will talk about it, why it is false. But I explained. Because this means that تقدم الشيء على نفسه. Something has to be there before it exists. A has to be there to create B, and then B is going to create A. This is not possible. وَإِنْ كَانَ مُمْكِنًا آخَرَ. If you say A is created by B, B is created by C, and C by D, D by E, this is تسلسل. This is endless regression. وَهُوَ بَاطِلٌ أيضا. This is also false. Why it is false? Because this series of mumkinat, contingent beings that you have, this series includes contingent beings. So the whole series becomes also needy. The increase in number is not going to change their nature. Yeah? 100 hungry people are hungry. 1 million hungry people are hungry. So, إن كان ممكنا آخر تسلسل وهو باطل. تسلسل is also باطل. لأن جميع آحاد تلك السلسلة الجامعة لجميع الممكنات, because all the individual parts of that chain, silsila is like a chain. All the individual members or parts of that chain, they are all ممكن. لأن جميع هذه تلك السلسلة الجامعة لجميع الممكنات, that chain which includes all the ممكنات, it's ممكن. So the whole silsila becomes ممكن. The whole chain becomes contingent. فتشترك في امتناع الوجود لذاتها. So the whole silsila, the whole series cannot exist by itself. When one mumkin cannot exist by itself, then the whole chain cannot exist by itself. Is it clear? فَلَا بُدَّ لَهَا مِن مُوجِدٍ خَارِجٍ عَنْهَا. There must be an originator outside this silsila, outside this series. بِالضَّرُورَةِ. Necessarily, or clearly, obviously. فَيَكُونُ وَاجِبًا. What is outside silsila mumkinat? What is outside this chain of mumkinat? Wajib. وَهُوَ الْمَطْلُوبُ. This is matlub. Okay, now we go to the commentary of Fazil al-Miqdar. But I think maybe we stop here, and I'm happy to take your questions. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.